Well, hey guys, we're officially starting the show now. My name is Lauren Mowery. I'm the contributing travel editor for Wine Enthusiast magazine, and thank you for joining us on Friday night. I don't think too many people had too many places to go, so this is a great place to be. We are talking with Paul Clifton of Hahn Family Wines. He is the director of winemaking, and here he is. So I will let you talk for a little bit now. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be at the winery, and a little bit about the brand and Santa Lucia being a great place to grow grapes.
Yeah, maybe
I know that's a lot of questions packed into one, so you can break them up.
Yeah, maybe I'll start off with kind of where we're located for those people that don't know. We're in Monterey County, which is a couple hours south of San Francisco, and we are in the Salinas Valley. Salinas Valley is where a lot of the nation's leafy greens come from. And we're basically, we're along a mountain range called the Santa Lucia Mountain Range, which runs north to south. And on the western side of that mountain range is Big Sur, for reference. We're on the eastern side of the mountain range in what's called the Santa Lucia Highlands AVA, which is basically like it's like a alluvial fan that jets out of this valley. It's an eastern facing slope. I'm sitting at about 1,000 feet above sea level right here. And it's a family-owned winery owned by the Hahn family. Nikki Hahn started this in 1980, so 40-year anniversary. Philip Hahn is now the head of running the winery.
It's second generation, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Phil lives in London. He's hoping to get back here soon as quarantines are lifted. But
okay. He got caught in London?
Yeah, that's where he lives. He resides there.
Oh, lives there. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. Because some people have been caught overseas for extended periods of time. So that's nice to hear that wasn't his situation. So Santa Lucia, I was telling the audience as we were waiting, is a cool climate region, and I didn't really get into the grapes that they grow, but cool climate for California tends to mean great Chardonnays, Pinot Noirs, and even really fresh Cabernets. And those are the wines we'll be tasting from you this evening. Just so the audience knows the format, we are tasting 3 wines. As I mentioned, a Chard, a Pinot, and a Cabernet. Please keep in mind, we're tasting just to talk about the property, talk about the place, to be transported to California tonight. We don't expect that you would have these wines, and we don't want you to be turned off because we're tasting and you don't have them at all. So this is meant to be transporting, inspiring. If you like what you hear, of course, you're welcome to buy the wines, either online, or Hahn is actually doing a special deal, and I'll be posting that when I post photos of the wines we're tasting. So before we get into the wines, if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, because you grew up in the region, right? And how did you end up getting into winemaking? And you spent a little time in New Zealand, right? One of my other favorite places. So
yeah, it's a beautiful place. I went to school here. I was born and raised in the Salinas Valley. I went to school in Colorado, got a business degree there, worked in the banking industry, which was a little too tight for me, so I got in.
Fun fact, I used to be a lawyer. So I know about getting out of the
Anyway, so I decided to move up to Lake Tahoe and became a ski instructor during the winters and firefighting in the summers. I thought that was my calling, firefighting.
Yeah.
And it was seasonal. I decided to move back down here to Monterey, and I needed a wintertime job, so I've been making some wine through some old family history, and decided, well, I'd try it out. So entry-level winemaking, it's called a cellar master or a cellar worker. So I started out as a cellar worker at a local winery here, had a really good mentor, learned a lot about the winemaking methods, and felt pretty strong with that, but then decided, well, I saw UC Davis and Fresno State pumping out all these kids with degrees. Like, well, at the time you really didn't need a degree, but
right.
So I decided to go back to school and get a postgraduate degree, and so I started researching where to go, and turns out that New Zealand, you can actually ski and surf in the same day.
I've heard that from winemakers down there.
So
Priorities.
Yeah, so I went down there. Also, it was the only English-speaking school that really focused on cool climate viticulture. Finished up there in 2001, 2002, and then moved back to California, where I met the Hahn family and fell in love with them as well as the property here. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I've actually been there before. It was a couple years ago, but I remember that just the whole valley was just felt so underrated as a tourist destination. It's almost like people go north or they go south and somehow, or they go to Monterey and the coast, but they miss that gorgeous interior. And as you mentioned, it's a great place for fruit and agriculture in general. So it was such a pleasant surprise to go there and not have crowds at all. It felt like empty roads in the area. So
yeah,
I don't know how it is today. It's been a few years, but
yeah, still pure country. There's no Michelin star restaurants or 5-star hotels.
Right.
Raw. Good tacos, though.
Tacos are great. Okay, so we're going to get started on the wines. As I mentioned, we have 3 wines to do tonight. We have Chardonnay, we have Pinot, and we have a Cabernet. So, do you have your wines ready to go?
I do, yeah.
Or am I tasting by myself? I can, okay, see, you've got your Chardonnay. So, first wine, let me just load my screen here, is the Santa Lucia Highlands Chardonnay, and let's pop that up on the screen. So Hahn Family Winery is offering 6 bottles of for complimentary shipping. So any viewers this evening that are interested in it, please keep that in mind. And if you want to tell us a little bit about the wine, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so the Santa Lucia Highlands, like a lot of cool climates, get a lot of fog and wind, and here the Chardonnay is known for having very tropical flavors, and you know, for a winemaker, it's probably the one variety that you can like put the most style influence on in terms of big oaky butter bomb or unoaked. For this wine, we didn't want to bury all that beautiful fruit with oak.
Yeah.
So it's all barrel fermented, but only you know, about 30% new French oak. So it's got a hint of, you know, that vanilla, just kind of complementary to the fruit. Okay. So in estate, both these first 2 wines are both estate driven. And yeah, it's, you know, it's Chardonnay. Like I said, it's all over the board, and we're just kind of going right down the middle in terms of stylistically. I'm trying to please everybody. Yeah,
well, what I think is really lovely about it, it's got this crisp, almost a bit of a salinity, but then there's a really ripe pear and orchard fruit character. But you really do there's a nice balance and tension between texture and breadth while retaining the freshness of this wine. So I was curious how much of that is your winemaking, which you explained a little bit, and then how much is just like that really cooler climate Santa Lucia Highlands influence.
Yeah. The kind of thing about Chardonnay here is, you know, it's the first for bud break, it's the first to bloom, but it comes in after Pinot. Actually, a lot of times we're waiting for, just because of the climate here, we're waiting for the acid to come down enough before we pick. And in doing that, if you pick too early, then you're going to end up with a wine that's pretty tart and takes the enamel off your teeth and all that.
Yeah. This is, it really toes the line between that texture and that freshness, and it's a delight to drink, actually. So I'm glad you sent me 2 bottles. What would you pair with this wine? Do you eat, what kind of tacos do you eat? Because now that you mention those, I'm thinking fish tacos or something really fresh.
I definitely do fish tacos with this. But, you know, one of my favorite pairings with this is just basic chicken breast on the grill with a little salt, pepper, and garlic. Yeah. Really good pairing for this wine.
We haven't gotten to grilling season yet over here on the East Coast. So we're still trying to get through the root vegetables. and something green at the farmer's market. I think I spotted something the other day, maybe some spinach, but it's been a long winter here. So maybe I see some roasted sweet potatoes. I'm kidding. We're literally on the last basket of them. Yeah, it's really nice one. That was a 2018. Now, is that the current vintage that you're selling? And
Yeah.
also, do you sell any back vintages from the winery or online?
At the winery, we do just for wine club.
Okay.
Free selections.
And does that give people an opportunity to see how this wine ages? And
Yeah.
okay. And what would you say generally for the SLH, the Hahn SLH Chardonnay? What's the ageability of this one?
A white wine, as long as it's cellar, right, 4 or 5 years, but we want people right away.
Yeah, well, wine doesn't last too long in this house unless I lose it, which sometimes I do. I find it under the bed 2 years later, so it was aged by accident. But we have some comments, so we are going to see if we have any questions right now before we move to the next wine. Let's see. We have a question for you. Seth Flown wants to know what your favorite vintage of the Chard has been.
I think 17 was really good. It still is good.
Mm-hmm.
Going back, probably 2000. Been here a long time, so
Yeah.
a lot of good ones. 2005 was pretty good. Yeah, so it's kind of all over the board.
And someone asked, I saw it at the comments that were popping through. You said you only use French oak on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
We, pretty much across the board, all our wines it's all French oak.
Okay.
Experimented with American oak, but we still, for us, these wines that it's kind of like comparing butter and margarine. It's close, but it's still not.
Right. Cool. Well, I don't know if the arteries would compare butter to margarine, but but we're gonna move to the next wine now. And I was telling the audience that I had already dipped really deeply into this bottle, so I'll show you.
Yeah. Oh.
Because I was working and I had to make sure I understood it before we tasted it on TV or Instagram.
Waiting for a bonehead to get online too. So.
No, we're all good. I had fun with the audience. So we are now tasting the Pinot. I'm just going to pour a little fresh glass here. I also am a bit of a glass nerd, so I'm always changing my glassware depending on the wine. We have the 2018 Pinot Noir. So let me switch out actually this image and make sure we get the right one up. Okay. Okay, we have that one up. There we go. Okay, so again, for those who are joining us, we're tasting with Paul Clifton of Hahn Family Winery, and we are now on to the Pinot. And as you can see, you can buy any 6 bottles for complimentary shipping, and you can use the code that's on your screen. So please consider that. And now we're going to talk about the Pinot. I mean, Pinot really is Santa Lucia's key grape, right? I mean, that's what you guys do well, not just your winery, but the region really, right?
Yeah, the region's known for Pinot Noir. It was, back in the 70s, people were doing a lot of experimenting, trying to figure out what grew well here. Actually, Nicky Hahn, he noticed this bench that we're sitting on, the soils are, very, they're basically decomposed metamorphic rock. And he's like, oh, it's very different than the valley floor. And so he got together with his neighbors and said, hey, we should do like a sub-AVA. So we went ahead and did that. And that was 1991 that the AVA was granted. Within that, there's a couple local neighbors of ours, Gary and Francione and Pizzoni, that both did phenomenal things in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened everybody's eyes to how, this grape variety up here, like what you could do with it. if you grow it right and you have some decent winemaking. So the Hahn's, made they turned a big switch and replanted pretty much everything they have here to Pinot and Chardonnay. We've got some Grenache and Syrah too, but Pinot's by far kind of it's our bread and butter, so to speak. We've got 4 different vineyards in the San Lucia Highlands that we have Pinot on, and the AVA, the way it's laid out, it's north to south, north being closest to the ocean. So in the northern part of the AVA, you get this kind of more like a more elegant, lighter structured, silky tannins. And as you move further south, you get a little more sun, a little more wind. You get more voluptuous Pinot with some structure. And this is basically a really good representation of the AVA as a whole, just because it's we're spread out among the AVA, so you get kind of both pieces, both sides of it in terms of.
To summarize, you're actually blending from 4 sites that capture the characteristics of these different areas and putting in it to this one wine.
This is a blend of 4 vineyards, and then we also do the 4 vineyards by themselves under our Lucien label.
Okay.
So it kind of breaks it down into what each vineyard contributes to this blend.
How many different Pinots do you make, or do you make one? Make more than one, right?
We've got 4, 5, 6, maybe 7.
Okay.
7 different.
Okay. And where does this one fall in the lineup of the 7 wines 7 Pinots you make?
This is right in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
We've on Founders, which kind of like the everyday tier.
Okay.
And this is in the middle tier, and then we've got some higher end, the single vineyard designates.
Right. Okay. And how long does this wine tend to age?
Oh yeah, I popped a 2007 about a couple of weeks ago, and it was phenomenal. So.
A 2007. Oh, fantastic. Okay. This is a 2018, just so viewers know which vintage we're enjoying. And I think this is a fantastic representation of the region, to your point, and capturing all those different characteristics of the different sites. But it has that lovely freshness. I can feel like I'm in the marine layer tasting this wine, but then that really ripe, lovely cherry character, but not so ripe, and there's no cola anywhere in this wine. All right, so let's move on from the Pinot, and we are going to head into Cabernet. Now, Cabernet isn't, obviously it's grown there. Great wines are made from Cabernet in the region, but as you mentioned, most people think of Pinot or even Chardonnay from Santa Lucia. So can you tell us a little bit about how Cabernet grows there and
So,
I'm supposed to stir the bottle too. Sorry, guys. And then a little bit about the label and how the the different brand.
Yeah. So Smith and Hook, those are the first 2 properties that the Hahn family bought in the 70s, 79, 80. And it's the first brand they created. Smith Ranch being where I am. I'm actually in an old horse stable that's converted into an office. So this was originally a horse ranch. Next door was the Hook Ranch, which was a cattle ranch. And so paying homage to the families that were here before the Hahns, they created this brand. Again, back in the 70s, there was some Cabernet plant up here. It's since all gone. It's all Burgundian or Rhone varieties up here. And, and so now, we kind of repackaged it, reintroduced it, and we sourced the fruit vineyards from growers that we purchased the fruit from. And that comes from southern Monterey County, where it's much warmer. A little AVA called San Antonio Valley.
Oh yeah, yep.
Paso Robles. Also deep in Arroyo Seco Canyon. So hotter climate grape. It just when they were trying it here in the San Lucia mountain range, some of the professors were saying, oh yeah, Cabernet, and everyone thought, Cabernet for Monterey. Yeah, well, it depends on where you are in Monterey. If you're further, much hotter, and you don't get that bell pepper aroma that you would here if you still had Cabernet in this cool climate.
Yeah.
So now we source from a number of AVAs within Central California, and they each give a different layer to the Cabernet. And yeah, it's for the it's for the price, it's killer wine.
The Central Coast labeling.
Yeah.
Or designation. What is the price of this wine?
25 is suggested retail.
Oh wow, it packs a lot of flavor for 25.
Yeah. So Nikki's, when I got back from New Zealand and I met Nikki, and we hit it off, and before he hired me, he's like, you got to promise me one thing, whatever you do, make sure that you make these wines taste twice the price.
Yeah.
And he's like, I will give you all the support in terms of people and resources that you need to do that, but you got to promise that to me. And that's been my mission ever since. How
big of a team do you have in the cellar there?
There's about 15 people in the cellar altogether, so not extremely large. We run pretty lean, but a lot of the team I have working here have been here as long as I have, for 17 years. So
okay. And how was the spring been for you guys? Actually, can you tell us a little bit about spring in Santa Lucia Highlands and what the weather's like? Did you have are you in flowering already?
Yeah. So the springtime, we typically have bud break in late February, early March, and then bloom started a couple weeks ago in Chardonnay, and we're starting to see it in Pinot now. And then it's been this year's been a lot of rain, later April rains, which has been beautiful for the flowers, the wildlife, caused a little bit of disease pressure for the fruit around here, or the vines. But no, it's turning out to be, we're starting to get back into that windy pattern that we get this spring. We get a lot
does the wind ever, even though it's actually, there was an interesting article on Wine Enthusiast magazine that published today or yesterday. I think wind is a fascinating aspect of winemaking, and someone did a piece on it, and it can be such a blessing and also a curse depending on how it blows and how intensely. So do you ever find that the wind is too intense in the region, that it disrupts your flowering, or
not the flowering? They're self-pollinating, so the winds, more wet weather, or probably wet weather during spring or bloom is bad for us. The wind actually helps dry things out.
Right. Okay.
So the wind pays an impact on photosynthesis. It actually will stop photosynthesis, like the sugar being pumped into the grapes. That does, it allows the grapes to kind of hang there and gather more sun and build up more anthocyanins or color in the skin. Up with fruit that has Pinots that can be very very rich in color and structure. Right.
And then what are the typical weather patterns? You have spring rain or winter rain, spring rain, and then it sort of dries out over the summer. And
it's dry here. It's we get this year we got about 11 inches of rain. And
is that typical, or
it's like averages 15 inches, so we're a
little low.
So it's very arid. On the other side of the mountain range here, Big Sur, they get like 2 or 3 times that amount. It's like a rain shadow. So we don't get a lot of rain. Our biggest threat is during spring, during bloom. In the 17 years I've been here, we've had rain during harvest maybe a handful of times, so it's not something really to worry about much.
Right. And then just going back to this wine, the more I'm tasting it, and as it's opened up, it has a nice structure to it, but it's really approachable, and it's it's a 2017, but with so much flavor. So I'm trying to think what I would eat with this. What would you pair?
Ribeye.
Still?
Yeah. Well. I know. I told her we were talking yesterday. I for health reasons I decided to go plant-based, but I call it flexitarian. So sometimes every couple of weeks I'll throw a steak on the grill.
Well, someone mentioned in the comments scroll tri-tip, and I think that's what I said to you yesterday. Like, you can imagine tri-tip tacos. You know,
Yeah.
Tacos have been like the perfect food because you can put anything in them: eggs, bacon for breakfast. Can you put portobello mushrooms or sauteed mushrooms and have a really lovely, rich, savory, meaty, and satisfying taco? So there's a lot of ways of doing tacos. So a ribeye or a tri-tip taco is my pick for this wine. Anyway, hopefully we'll get those going soon. I think we are actually running a little bit out of time. Let me just check and see what else we have on the agenda. Are there any other audience questions? So there's the, just to remind you guys, there's a little question mark box in the bottom if you want to ask a question. Otherwise, I can scroll through and see if there's been anything of note that I've missed while we're chatting. Someone said, okay, here's one. Someone said, we only have the Zinfandel from Hahn Family Wines. What can you tell me about that wine?
Yeah, so we do, it's a different brand. It's called Bone Shaker. It's a different label. And we established a relationship a number of years ago with a grower out of Lodi, the Mettler family.
Okay.
And,
yeah, I know them. Yeah.
So it's called Bone Shaker Zinfandel out of Lodi, California. Okay. So,
and I want to ask you,
yeah, that's a beast of a wine.
Right. What wines do you like to drink in your spare time?
Well, I usually just pull whatever's coming off the bottling line and take that home. But I, in terms of a lot of San Lucia Highlands wines, I love learn what they're doing and sharing experiences. So. Right.
I always ask winemakers that question because I feel like the answer is always Burgundy.
Yeah. I've been there.
White Burgundy when I can get it, and red Burgundy when someone else gives it to me. So I was testing you to see if you were going to give the Burgundy answer. Real quick, we have a few more questions in the question box. So let me see what we have down here. Let's see. Here's one from Dave Jankow. Paul, what's your favorite varietal to work with?
Well, obviously, we're Pinot heavy here, so definitely Pinot, because I think it gives you know, there's not a lot you can do in the winemaking to tweak it or cheat. You can't blend anything into it without changing the varietal character. It's honest, and it tells you what the land's really doing. That's my favorite. Chardonnay is probably my favorite because there's so many different styles and crazy. Yeah.
Let's see if we have time for maybe one more question, and then we'll have to wrap up. Let's see. Oh, okay. How about this one? From AKF1227. Not a name, but thanks for joining us this evening. The question is, what is the story about the name of SLH, and why do most wines have a rooster on the label? So I think for people who don't know, there is this little rooster down here in the bottom.
Yeah, rooster, Hahn means rooster in German. That's where the rooster. And
well, that was a quick. That was too quick an answer for you.
It's basically Spanish explorers saw the glow of at sunset here over the mountain range. It looks like golden around the mountain, and they decided pay tribute to Lucia, who is the saint of light in dark times, and that's why they named this mountain range Santa Lucia. Not Lucia, it's Lucia because it's Spanish.
That sounds like an apropos way to end this, actually. Light and dark times, which is what this interview has been this evening on Friday night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
If you're interested in buying the wines, check out their shop online, or you can find from your local retailer. Thank you guys. See you next time. Bye, Paul. Thank you.